school-based career council. We are trying all kinds of things, but the reality is we will have difficult time in trying to convince them. On the sectors that are driving the growth, but not driving employment creation is very true. This is very obvious in Bhutan. Our GDP, the biggest contributor to our GDP is hydropower construction. And I just told you that it's creating very little, it's creating a lot of jobs, but the Bhutanese are not willing to take. So anyway, so it's creating very little jobs for Bhutanese during the construction phase. After the construction phase, hydropower plants create very little job. And we had one hydropower that just completed. During the peak of the construction, they employed 18,000. After it was commissioned, they have only 800 people. So hydropower plants do not create jobs. So this is very true that in Bhutan, sectors that are driving the growth, GDP, is not driving employment creation.
Thank you very much. Jonah?
Yeah. Agriculture in Afghanistan, as I think was mentioned earlier, employs a maximum number of people, 40% actually, and contributes 24% of the GDP. And then when it comes to industry, it has remained static. And its contribution is only 21% to the GDP. But it is in the service that shows maximum growth. But again, it's informal. So if we go back to the infrastructure when it comes to agriculture, that's absent. So Afghanistan is dependent on its neighboring country for its even like food security. And when it comes, there is also like the drought wherein they were supposed to come up with the produce of like dried fruits. And that's a problem. The post-harvest technology is not in place. So all of this compounding on the instability within Afghanistan. So it's complex within Afghanistan, and that also of its relationship with its neighboring countries. So there are a lot of things. So we're asking for solutions, but I'm not sure if I can offer one because it's just so complex with how things are. And even when it comes to agriculture, where they're saying that there should be alternative livelihood because for the past years, areas where they are supposed to be zero, like poppy free, it's now increasing. So our studies will show at AREU that areas declared to be poppy free are now also increasing. So that compounds now the problem within and outside.
Thank you.
I'll just be brief and answer these three questions. The first question is that regarding casual workers, contract workers, is India a standout case? I'm not too sure about the empirics from the other South Asian countries, but at least the numbers that I've shown would make me believe that yes, in India, contract workers is increasingly increasing its importance in manufacturing. The second question is about the 12.5% of employment growth from the map of India. Why is that a scenario like that? Well, there could be multiple reasons, as you showed in a slide later, that electricity is important, tax administration is important. So it could be a culmination of many of those reasons, and I'm not too surprised that labor regulations is down the ladder at number 4 or 5 and access to land. But what is very important is that 12.5% is also very disturbing because of a recent study I have done has shown that even in labor-intensive sectors, the labor employment is declining. And part of the reasons that we have explained in the paper is that this is due to the trade policies where you have your lowering of tariff, non-tariff barrier, and which is increasingly now leading to a substitution of capital for labor, even in labor-intensive firms. And that's even disturbing when you talk about 12.5%. Your comment, I guess I completely agree that the anti and pro may not be a correct way to look at labor reforms as to make it more effective and things like that. But regarding your question as to what is driving the contract worker engagement, it's not the Contract Labor Act. I think it's a simple model of business. It's just for the firms, it pays to employ contract workers. It's a simple profit, wages, salary, whatever, and including it's the business model in many firms and across firms that there are a large number of contract labor employment. That's it. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much. We simply shouldn't think that the growth of contract labor in India is unique to the world. It's happening everywhere, and it is a business model. Any burning desires out there? All right, there's two. First, the lady in back.
Thank you. I enjoyed this session very much, but I think there are policy questions to be asked. In the session that I chaired this morning, Professor Maharatna criticized the policy of reservations for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes. So one question to the panel is, all the societies in South Asia are highly socially differentiated. Is there the equivalent of untouchability or untouchables or ex-untouchables in countries other than India? And are there policies other than reservations, which were criticized this morning, which address this issue of discrimination against people who have been treated contemptuously and oppressed for centuries? It may be that the question isn't relevant in some South Asian countries, but I suspect that it is. The second question, again, is a spin on another question that was asked earlier. Self-employment, it varies throughout South Asia. In many countries, it's really important. We heard that some of it is distress-induced, and while other is speculative or voluntaristic or entrepreneurial. I would like to know what the panelists think self-employment actually is. Is it capital? Is it labor? Is it something that is different from capital and labor? And what do your countries have as policies to deal with it or develop it? Is it something to be demolished and destroyed, or is it something to be encouraged? Lastly, the very interesting study that ICRIER proposes to do on Contract Labour Act. What I would like to know is that within manufacturing sector, how important is that factory labour sector that you propose to study? It's a simple factual question. Thank you very much.
This is just a sort of a continuing reaction of Dave's, because I'm associated with, with the project as well. And I just wanted to make a quick comment about the law. Yes, there is no change in the law, legislation and so on and so forth. But Supreme Court judgments have allowed employers to use contract labor more freely than they were using them earlier. So the Steel Authority judgment of 2001 is significant even in those figures. It's from around that time that we start seeing a increase. So I think further research will resolve some of these issues. Thank you.
Okay, why don't we give anyone on the panel a chance to answer these? Yeah, who would like to go first?
I just wanted to take this opportunity to inform the lady that in Bhutan we don't have caste system. Therefore, no question of reservation for scheduled caste and whatever they were he was talking about this morning. We do have some perception about gender discrimination in the case of women not being in the decision-making positions and very few women in the parliament. And we have a lot of explanation. Of course, it has to do a lot with the education system that was introduced only in early 60s, modern education system. And Bhutan being very mountainous, it was very difficult for girls to go, the days and weeks walk to school and live there. So, I mean, we have that explanation, but it is not because of discrimination. There is a discussion going on in the country for reserving seats in the parliament for women. And surprisingly, women themselves do not want seats to be reserved for them, because then they will be seen as a lesser, than the men, because seats are reserved for. Because in Bhutan, all said and done, well, many people don't believe this, but women run the household. Many of our landed property belong to women. For example, I don't have anything. Everything is in my wife's name. So if she kicks me out, I have to go without anything. So we are a little different in South Asia from that point of view. And the contract, again, I'm also a little surprised to, well, I don't know, maybe Bhutan is doing something wrong or we are doing differently in South Asia. For example, we are promoting self-employment as a very good alternative to employment promotion or employment creation, because we feel that self-employment will not only create jobs for himself or herself, but will also create 1 or 2 jobs for others. So, and I was also surprised that self-employment is not seen as a very good employment program. So I'm just beginning to wonder whether we are doing something very wrong. Then on contract labor, by the way, we enacted the labor law in 2007, and it was drafted by an ex-official of the ILO. We did not have a labor law. And then we have been showing it to the ILO in Geneva and in Delhi, and they said, oh, our labor law is very good. We do not have a problem with the contract employment just now. But I'm hearing a lot about this in this today's discussion. So I don't know whether I have to mentally prepare for problems under the labor law, because our labor law is only 7 years old. Yesterday I wanted to ask the labor secretary, I didn't get the chance. I found that one of the labor laws is enacted in 1926. I was just wondering, because that time the system of governance was completely different. It was under the British Raj, and India became democracy independent in 49, and how this labor law never got amended. I wanted to ask that question, but by the time I raised my hand, she had left. So, but I was surprised that a law that was enacted under a monarchy had still survived and still is working or being applied. So, of course, if somebody can answer me this question.
Those laws are under revisions, and very soon we'll find them to be updated.
Okay, thanks very much, Wangda. Yes, certainly, Nisha.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question you ask about discrimination among different castes. And at present in Sri Lanka, we don't really see that in general, but actually some population groups, actually the migrant workers who came from India in the 18th century, 19th century, there is some caste-based divisions going on in that era. But I must say that my mother talks about when she was young, about people being treated differently, giving them lower seats to sit on, but that has disappeared. I have not experienced that, so that is something interesting to study. I don't know what influenced that change, but I have not experienced that. Maybe it's education, I'm not sure. But it has been there in Sri Lanka at maybe 50, 60 years ago, but it is no longer there. Regarding self-employment, I think self-employment is interesting, but it is, I think you can't, because there are different types of self-employed people. So depending on what types you are looking at, I think it's certainly, if people find it's lucrative and they want to be self-employed, I think that should be encouraged. I don't see a problem in encouraging self-employment, but the problem is when they don't they remain self-employment and they need a lot of incentives to be self-employed, then that might be a problem. But otherwise, yes, we can encourage.
Nepal just emerged from the civil conflict, and one of the demands there was inadequate representation of different groups as being a major issue, so both in terms of caste as well as ethnicity, and of course religion as well. So now we have a situation where the recent census enumerated 105 different groups, 94 different languages, and 12 different religious groups. So in that sense, I think like the question of reservation really means something very different. It's a country of minority. The largest group comprises 13% of the total population. So right now we have a reservation policy which says 45% of all the civil service seats has to go to people from disadvantaged groups. So that includes both women as well as people from Dalit and different ethnic groups. I think the experience that this whole idea of that we had in Nepal for a long time, that all Nepalis are the same, that just proved as a big myth when the time came to look at monitor results by disaggregating outcomes according to caste ethnic groups. So I think the point is that for some countries reservations are necessary. Otherwise, I don't think we would ever, actually in the case of Nepal at least, to be able to move to a point where there is some equality, that initial push and that would come in the form of reservations, affirmative action would be important. But what is also required, I think, and this is an effort that is ongoing in Nepal, is to develop the capacity of people who will be fulfilling those seats. And currently there's an effort in the civil service to actually provide additional trainings for women so that they can pass the civil service exams as well as perform competitively. I think the question on self-employment is a very interesting one, and I can't think of, I haven't thought, I think that's something that will require more thought, but one thing that comes to mind immediately is that as we see in this data that was presented here as well, that it's almost a reality. And whether good or bad, it's there. And I think for a country like Nepal to make the next move, there needs to be some effort to scale it up. And I think the cooperatives movement that we have ongoing right now, which tries to bring together these micro-entrepreneurs, is probably a good step in that direction.
Thanks. Sorry. Thank you, Vandita. Anybody else want to add anything? Okay. Jonah.
About Afghanistan has no caste system, but it's very clear on there are key drivers of multiple inequalities when it comes to women and men, and the access to resources and even access to education, access to basic services. So that I think is very important, that needs to be addressed. like even like the government is pegging a target that the government will be employing 30% of the women, 30% of the, but it's even declining lately. So that's really something that needs to be looked into.
Okay, well, thanks very much to everyone. I just would like to say that conventionally in the development literature, we look at self-employment not as something bad, but as something necessary. The fact is that the poor person in a poor country has labor to offer and has no capital. And so the barriers to entry of being self-employed are much lower, and that's what people do. Are they all entrepreneurs who will become the next Bill Gates or something? The answer is utterly not. It's a survivalist strategy in the absence of aggregate demand and the absence of paid employment. Okay, with that, I'd like to thank very much these panelists who've been very, very interesting, and both in their presentations and in answering questions. And it's been, as I said and promised, without even knowing it, it's been a very diverse session and a kind of an interesting kaleidoscope of labor policies and labor issues in the South Asian region. So would you join me in thanking this wonderful panel? All right.
I would like to invite Dr. Kathuria for the vote of thanks.
Well, you can. Hi, this will take just a couple of minutes. We need to recognize all those who've been involved in the organization of this conference, just a couple of minutes before the dinner. Yes, and somebody has to take a snap of the last panel as well. Well, I think it's been a magnificent conference ever since this started yesterday morning with a very energetic session, a panel discussion in which we were told, and I don't think that emerged from the final discussion, we were told that we know what we have to do and we just have to get it done. But, you know, there's a lot of things, as I was sitting listening to the final panel, they seem, especially across South Asia, there are a lot of things that we still need to know before we actually attempt to get them done. And that is the purpose of this project, this multi-country, multi-institutional project, is try and, you know, build up that evidence base so that we can make much more meaningful policy intervention. Well, we can only give advice, or not even advice, just put it out there, and it's for governments to take it or not, or consign it to the dustbin. More often than not, it's the latter. But we'll just put it out there, and they can then design their policy interventions. And I think there's a lot that we still need to do, and a number of interesting questions emerged through the day yesterday, through the day today, and I'm sure that Ali, who's sitting right here, who you must have heard of, and you must have seen the emails from Ali and his very efficient team, Radhika, Sugandha, Sirjan. Would you please all stand up? Ali, and they've been, you know, extremely meticulous in the organization of this conference. And I will invite Ali to say a few words after I'm done. But he and the team have been absolutely wonderful in getting the organization and, you know, putting, it's very difficult. We didn't talk about visas in this conference, but whenever we are in a South Asian conference, or whenever we always talk about visas. And getting visas to come to India is extremely difficult. I'm sure you're all aware of that. And we had to send out letters from ICRIER, and Ali and the team was following up. Did you get your visas? Have you got your letter? Have you been to the High Commission? And this is one of the things that our new government is promising to simplify and make it available online, so that, and some countries do not even need to get visas, and they'll get visas on arrival. So hopefully all that facilitation and easing of the regulatory constraints will begin to happen here. But, you know, thanks to Ali and his team that you were all able to make it here, and thank you all very much for coming here and, you know, helping us with the insights that you've brought and helping us, in fact, as I said, with the research agenda that we are going to decide, I guess, tomorrow in a meeting that we have for the next couple of years. So it's been wonderful, and thank you all very much. So join me in a big round of applause for all the guests, all the wonderful panelists, the discussants who've come here from India and from abroad. And finally, I would like to also thank the admin team. No conference in ICRIER is complete without the support of the admin team, and they've got it like clockwork. They do it very well, very efficiently. All the organization, the lunches, the dinners, the organization of the hall, the video cameras, everything is done to the T, to perfection. So some of the team is here. Kishan, I can see, Sharad, Manmeet, Neha, Rajesh, Rajkumar, right here. We also call him the Harfanwala, which translates into man for all seasons, and Chaya. So could you all give them a big round of applause? And I may have omitted this Jeet there, who's Manmeet. So all of them. Thank you all very much. Give them a big round of applause again. Okay, and we'll see you again. Ali, would you tell the attendees where we will see them again next year? India, Nepal, I don't know, where? Anyway, I would let Ali say a few words as well.
Just 1 minute.
Yeah.
I'll just take 1 minute. This is the first international conference I've organized. And I think it was, the way I look at it is, it's been a big learning experience for me, the shortcomings and everything. So I look at it from that perspective and the way we can improve it. But for me, it was very delightful to see a lot of people whose works I had read, and to see them live and speaking and everything. It was very wonderful. And tomorrow we have a meeting with the World Bank and partner institutions, and we'll decide the agenda for the next year. And hopefully next year, depends on the meeting tomorrow, we'll try to reach out to more South Asian countries, So I think this time it was all more India focused, but next year probably we'll do more South Asia. So we are looking forward to cooperation from the South Asian partners who are here and potentially others also. Thank you very much.
That's South Asia. You love each other so much. No, but what I was meaning is Sri Lanka. For the rest of the world, it's just like very open.
So
you should seriously think about doing it. Oh, really? Okay.
I was thinking. Radhika, please come. Rajkumar.